Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, planned high-level inter-Korean talks appear to be hanging by a thread after the two Koreas trade fire in the latest military altercation at the heavily fortified border. The conference of International Telecommunications Union kicks off in Korea's southern city of Busan on this Monday. ICT officials from dozens of countries roll out a declaration that calls for a more beneficial and sustainable ICT development. Plus, more violence in Hong Kong as police and pro-democracy protesters clash yet again ahead of talks scheduled for Tuesday. Daybreak begins now.
Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, October 20th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, the two Koreas exchanged fire across the heavily fortified border on Sunday. Now, this is just the latest in a series of armed clashes, and it further raises concerns that plans for high-level political talks could fall apart. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff says the incident took place at around 5:40 p.m. Korea time at the military demarcation line near the border city of Paju, after roughly 10 North Korean soldiers were seen approaching the heavily fortified border. The exchange of fire lasted for around 10 minutes. There were no reports of casualties or property damage in South Korea, though no details are known about the situation in the north. Prior to that incident, South Korea's presidential office expressed confidence that the planned round of inter-Korean talks will take place as scheduled. Senior Secretary for Foreign Affairs at Cheongwade, Ju Chol-ki, said Sunday that the talks will still go ahead, adding that Seoul is already making preparations for them. Now, there have been understandable concerns that the talks may be cancelled given the recent military altercations at the border and the lack of any progress at general-level military talks last week. South Korea is very keen to hold the talks as planned, and it actually suggested October 30th as a date to hold them. North Korea has yet to respond to the South's proposal. Pope Francis has sent a positive message regarding the situation on the Korean peninsula, saying that from time to time, families do have their differences, but they are always open for reconciliation. The presidential office of Cheongwade said on Sunday that the Pope relayed his message to President Park Geun-hye last Friday during their meeting at the Vatican, which we can see there. The Pope added that he is keeping the two Koreas in his prayers and emphasized the need to pray for peace and unification. The meeting between Pope Francis and President Park came just 2 months after the Pope made a historic visit to South Korea. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has made his first military-related appearance since coming back into the public eye early last week. The North State-run media also showed Kim at another event, congratulating gold medalists from recent sporting events. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is making regular public appearances following a prolonged absence that had the world wondering about what was going on in the north. The North's media reported Sunday that Kim inspected drills by fighter pilots in what marks his first military-related appearance since returning to the public eye on October 14th. The young leader guided a takeoff and landing drill by the fighter pilots from the Korean People's Army. It was not indicated when the event took place, but Kim was shown carrying a cane, just like in images of him released last week. Kim was said to have praised the pilots for their outstanding aviation skills and called for intense training to prepare for modern warfare. In a separate report, the North's media said the young leader met with gold medalists and their coaches from recent sporting events, including the Incheon Asian Games. Kim was seen shaking hands with the athletes and hosted a banquet for them. The leader was accompanied by his wife Lee Seol-ju and top officials including Hwang Byung-seo, the North's number 2. Kim's recent appearances come after an absence of some 40 days during which speculation mounted about his possible health problems and even a coup.
Through the resumption of Kim Jong-un's activities in the economic, military, and social sectors, it seems that North Korea is trying to show that Kim's leadership has been normalized.
Last week, Kim gave field guidance at a residential complex for scientists and inspected a new apartment complex for educators. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade is calling on the National Assembly to waste no time ratifying the country's free trade agreement with Australia, signalling that it would like the deal rubber-stamped by the end of the year. The office says a swift ratification would give Korean exporters a head start over their Japanese rivals in the very lucrative Australian market. The government is concerned that Korean exporters will lose precious ground to Japan if Japan's FTA with Australia takes effect first. Korea and Australia signed their FTA back in April, and the Korean government submitted it to the National Assembly for approval last month. Australia has been asking Korea to speed up the process, as it has already completed its necessary parliamentary procedures. Police here in Korea have carried out a series of raids following a collapse of a ventilation grate that killed 16 people during an open-air K-pop concert in Pangyo, Gyeonggi-do province. Officials say more than 10 places related to the accident were checked, including the offices of the main organizers of the event, the financial media outlet E-Daily, and the Gyeonggi Institute of Science and Technology Promotion. Police also raided the homes and vehicles of officials in charge of the concert, and several people have been slapped with travel bans. Now, inconsistencies in the event planning documents have been discovered by the authorities. The documents said 4 safety personnel would be on site, but in actual fact, none were present at the time of this awful accident. Also, none of the roughly 38 staff members at the event had received a single piece of safety training either. China's Communist Party will hold its 4th plenum under the leadership of Xi Jinping this week. The country's elite are expected to discuss a series of reform measures that will have a very significant impact on the Chinese economy and Chinese society in the years ahead. This year's meeting will focus on the rule of law and ways to crack down on endemic corruption in China. Son Jung-in has more.
This is the 4th plenum since Chinese President Xi Jinping took office. Elite members of the Chinese Communist Party are set to gather for a policy-setting meeting seeking to establish a platform for judicial and other reforms. Unlike previous meetings where the items on the agenda centered on issues related to the country's economy, this will be the first time that the party will focus on the rule of law. This is key to realizing Beijing's goal of promoting the modernization of China's governing system and capabilities. It is also expected to institutionalize Xi Jinping's long drive to tackle corruption by introducing a new anti-corruption office. The fate of former National Security Chief Zhou Yongkang, the first member of the party's Politburo Standing Committee to be detained for corruption, will also be a key development to watch during the meeting. There is speculation the leadership will make an example of him to show its determination to implement the rule of law. All eyes are also on what kind of measures the plenum will come up with to deal with the ongoing unrest in Hong Kong.
The protests may be drawn out for a long time and turn more bloody, so the Chinese government needs to figure out some countermeasures.
Other items to be discussed during the plenum include economic reforms such as provincial government's debt and rural land trade regulation. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following on this first day of the work week here in Seoul. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark. Although smaller in number, pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong show few signs of losing momentum as sit-ins enter the 23rd day this morning. Demonstrations also continue in the district of Mong Kok, a protest site riot police had tried to clear out early Friday, but demonstrators retook parts of the district over the weekend, culminating in 2 days of clashes with police who used pepper spray and batons to control the 100-strong crowds. The confrontations led to at least 20 people being injured, including police officers. Protest leaders will meet with Hong Kong government officials on Tuesday to work on a compromise. The talks are set to be broadcast live on TV. The debate on the airwaves, though, has already begun. Ahead of Tuesday's meeting, Chief Executive C.Y. Leung said in a TV interview that the protests have been supported by external forces and were out of control even for the organizers. The standoff took off more than 3 weeks ago as protesters called for fully democratic elections in the territory's 2017 chief executive polls, a demand that Beijing has signaled through Hong Kong's leaders it will not buckle to. Some encouraging news on the Ebola front this morning. The Spanish nurse's assistant who had contracted the hemorrhagic virus after treating 2 Ebola patients has now recovered. The Spanish government says a blood test showed Teresa Romero's immune system had cleared all traces of the virus, though hospital officials cautioned they would wait for results of a second blood test to absolutely confirm that. Also in the U.S., some 48 people being monitored for Ebola in connection to Thomas Eric Duncan are expected to be cleared in the coming hours after being watched for the maximum incubation period for Ebola. This as the Pentagon has formed an Ebola emergency response team for domestic cases. And in his weekly radio address, President Barack Obama tried to quell the diffusing Ebola fear by urging some perspective. He said more people, that is thousands, die of the common flu in the U.S. every year. And we'll wrap with an update on the war front on the Syrian-Turkish border. Kurdish forces are reportedly making gains on the strategic city of Kobani as a U.S. assault took down Islamic State militants from the air. Local residents said the airstrike stopped the jihadists in their tracks, of which U.S. Central Command said there were at least 11 airstrikes launched on Saturday and Sunday. UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said some 70 IS fighters were killed over the weekend.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Well, we've been talking about it a lot over the last few weeks and months, but D-Day is finally here. The world's largest information and telecommunications conference kicks off today in Korea's southern port city of Busan. Organisers were busy on Sunday putting the finishing touches on the agenda, as our Song Ji-son reports.
Connect 2020. That's the organizing theme guiding the International Telecommunications Union as it heads into its plenipotentiary conference this year. It's a vision that highlights the role of information and communication technologies as a key enabler for social, economic, and environmentally sustainable growth and development. The conference starts Monday with discussions on the future role of ICTs and sustainable development with inclusive ICTs got underway on Sunday at the ICT ministerial meeting in Busan. Korea has been hosting this annual ministerial meeting since 2005, and Sunday's discussions are expected to lay the groundwork for this year's plenipotentiary conference, which starts just a day after this meeting.
Member states at PP14 will be setting an ambitious vision branded as Connect 2020, which will set out how they, in close cooperation and collaboration with all stakeholders. Today's ministerial meeting is both timely and meaningful, as it allows us to lay the foundation stones on which we can build the cooperation to achieve Connect 2020.
Including the 52 ministers that attended Sunday's ICT ministerial meeting, over 150 ministers and vice ministers of ITU member countries will gather here at Bexco for the ITU plenipotentiary, which kicks off its 3-week conference on Monday. Song Ji-son, Arirang News, Busan.
Staying with that conference, the Science Ministry is aiming to shift Korea's information and communication technology industry to one that is more software-centered. Speaking to foreign reporters in Busan on Sunday, Korea's second Vice Minister of Science, ICT and Future Planning, Yoon Jong-lok, said there needs to be a paradigm shift in the ICT industry to software content and platforms. The minister also said Korea will upgrade its ICT industry via collaborations with other R&D-based industries in which Korea already excels, such as semiconductors and automobiles. Now, for this week's Industry Insight, we're going to take a look at the market for supercars here in Korea. Now, they may cost a small or large fortune to buy, but sales are going through the roof here in Korea. And our Kim Yeon-bin reports on the reasons behind the boom.
3 seconds is all it takes for a supercar like this to go from 0 to 100 in an hour. But it's taken a bit longer for these marvels of engineering to take Korea's ultra-high-end market by storm.
They're not something you'll see every day, but these so-called supercars, Lamborghinis, McLarens, and Ferraris, are no longer a rare sight on the streets of Seoul, especially in the capital's flashy Gangnam district.
Since super and ultra high-end cars started coming into the Korean market in 1987, more than 1 million have sold here. It took 20 years to sell the first 300,000, but some 600,000 have been sold in the past 7 years. These days, Korean consumers are placing greater emphasis on uniqueness and scarcity when selecting their vehicles.
Their owners are often in the richest 0.1% of Korean society, and it's not hard to see why, as a supercar often costs more than a typical house, running into the millions. So who exactly are buying these cream of the auto engineering?
The higher Korean won helps sales, but supercar buyers don't really feel the effects of the sluggish economy. Also, Koreans have a strong taste for luxury goods, and supercars are just a different means of showing off your wealth.
Ultra-high-end auto brands report jumps in sales across the board in Korea. Some talk about a decent 20 to 30% rise, while others, like Maserati, are seeing their sales go through the roof. The Italian automakers sold 280 units in the first half of this year, double what it sold the whole of last year. The increase will be more than triple for all of this year. Brands like Ferrari just can't supply models fast enough to meet demand.
Ferrari owners are not that young. They're generally middle-aged men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who have strong personalities and enjoy specialized cultural activities. To meet their needs, we host numerous events that match their interests and make the most of sports-related marketing, such as Formula One.
Ferrari and Lamborghini will have to stay on their toes, though, as more rivals enter the Korean market. Britain's Aston Martin, famous for its models that have featured in James Bond movies, recently opened a showroom in Seoul. McLaren, whose models are said to be priced at some $500,000, started to take orders last month. With luxury car makers identifying Korea as a key market for growth, many drivers here will increasingly see their cars bypassed by the likes of Lamborghinis and McLarens. Kim Yeon-bin, Arirang News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 LPGA KB Hanabank Championship, where a 19-year-old golfer claimed the top prize, and her name isn't Kim Hyo-ju, it's Baek Yu-jung. Now, after 18 holes on Sunday, the 19-year-old found herself tied with Chun In-ji and Brittany Lincecum at 10 under par overall, but birdies on the sudden death playoff hole, the winner of first ever LPGA Tour title. Meanwhile, Park In-byu had a great third and fourth round of the event, closed in on the leaders, but finished in fourth place at 9 under par. And now moving over to the KBO, where after the LG Twins snuck into the final playoff spot on Friday, they played against the third-place NC Dinos on Sunday for the first round of the best-of-5 playoff series. And of course, going into the game here, first inning, Lee Byung-gyu, that's a double to left center, scoring 2 runners on the play as the LG Twins take a 2-0 lead. Next batter, Lee Jin-young, RBI single here, and the LG Twins go up 3-0 before Chae Kyung-chul with 2 men on, gone, a 3-run shot, and the LG Twins take an early 6-0 lead. Second inning, Na Sung-bum, and this one drives to deep left field, gone, and NC's first home run in the postseason as the deficit is cut to 6-1. Now LG up 7-1 in the fifth inning. Park Yong-taek drives this ball to straightaway center, a home run, and the LG Twins now have an 8-1 lead. Now, despite barely making the postseason here, the LG Twins continue to swing away, adding 5 more runs in the 8th inning as LG takes game 1, 14-3. And now shifting over to Sunday's K-League Classic clash, Busan I-Park dominated Gyeongnam FC 4-0 with Ulsan Hyundai Tigers getting the win against Hangju Sangmu 2-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings take on Seongnam FC. Of course, going into the game here, it doesn't take long for the first goal to be scored as Kim Do-hyun scores in just the second minute of the match to give Suwon the early 1-0 lead. But Seongnam quickly levels the match as Kim Dong-sup scores the equalizer in the 11th minute as both sides go into the second half tied 1-1. Stays that way for most of the way until the North Korean Wayne Rooney Chung Dae-se 81st minute goal gives Suwon the 2-1 lead. But hold up, time winding down with 90th minute server Zekrov to the rescue. A 90th minute goal from Seongnam as both teams split a point each with a 2-2 draw. And now moving over to some Sunday's KBL action as the Goyang Orions remain undefeated as they beat Ulsan Mobis Phoebus 81-74 with Wonju Dongbu Promi beating the struggling Changwon LG Sakers 80-62. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Busan KT Sonic Boom take on Seoul SK Knights. Now, KT in control in the first quarter as they take a slim 14-11 lead before SK storms back to take a 33-26 lead going into the halftime. Third quarter, KT continues to struggle from the field while SK Knights' Aaron Haynes lights it up with another double-double, putting up 29 points and 10 rebounds, helping the Seoul SK Knights take this game 72-55. And finishing things off in volleyball, the 2014-2015 V-League season kicked off this past weekend. So let's take a look at 2 games that took place on Sunday, starting off in the men's league as Uri-Card Hanse took on the Korean Air Jumbos. Now, Uri-Card looking to repeat last year's performance, but the Korean Air Jumbos look great in the offense as they take the first 2 sets 25-21 and 25-22 before Uri-Card takes the third set 25-18. But Korean Air Jumbos' Michael Sanchez putting up a game-high 23 points. The Jumbos take this game 3-1 for their first win. Meanwhile, over on the Women's League, the defending champions GS Caltex taking out Hanguk Life Insurance Pink Spiders. Just a roller coaster of a game here as both teams split 2 sets each after the first 4. But in the decisive 5th set, the Pink Spiders dominate, taking the set 15-5 and the set 3-2 thanks to Rachel York's game-high 35 points. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, nationwide showers are expected throughout the day, and as we can see, autumn rain is pounding in some of the regions down south. So up to 120 millimeters are in store for Chungcheongdo, Jeollado, and Gyeongsangdo provinces, and 10 to 40 millimeters of showers will fall here in Seoul. And beware that the rain could be accompanied by thunder, lightning, and strong gusty winds. So without doubt, afternoon highs will be much cooler today, about 3 to 6 degrees lower than yesterday. The morning lows are slightly warmer than yesterday, hovering in the mid to upper teens. So let's take a closer look at today's temperatures. Now, the low in Seoul kicked off at 14, then the daytime highs in the capital will be reaching to 17, while Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 20 and 21, and Busan will rise to 22 this afternoon. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will see highs of 24 and 18 respectively, and Dokdo peaks at 19. Don't forget to have an umbrella handy and dress warmly today. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it from us for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour at 7 a.m. Korea time. Do have a fabulous day. Thanks for watching and goodbye.